Here are 5 tips for all rideshare drivers, Uber drivers, and Lyft drivers. I drive for Uber. I call it human. I have never in my life driven for Uber Eats, but it's almost the same. It's very similar. So tip number 1 is always have a phone charger plugged in for every rider. Like for me, I have 2 chargers in the back and 2 in the front, and I use tri-chargers. So everybody that gets in my car, I want to be able for them to charge their phone. So in any market, I drive in the Pinellas market, and I drive now in the Manatee market, and the iPhone has market share, and the iPhone has a proprietary charger that wears out if it's not Apple certified. So for the ones in the back and the one of them in the front, I got from Alibaba in like 2019. I bought 50 of them, and they were like $2 or $3 a piece after shipping, but they're tri-chargers. And for the ones in the rear, I use USB extenders, and I put electrical tape around the connections so they don't come loose. And so there's 2 in the back and 2 in the front, and the 2 in the back get used about probably 4 or 5 times a month now. And my charger as the driver is Apple certified because I have an iPhone, so I'm constantly plugging the charger in and unplugging it, and that is what makes that interface go bad. And when they go bad, I just throw, if they're not my chargers, if they're the other chargers, I test them all the time. So when I do a test and one of them doesn't charge, I throw the whole charger away, even though there's a USB-C connection that's metal and it's always going to be fine, and there's a micro USB connection on there that's also always going to be fine. So since the Apple charger does not work anymore, I just throw the whole thing away and put a new one in there. I do that about 2 or 3 times a year per charger. Tip number 2 is don't ever volunteer to talk to a rider about anything specific. Where you picked him up from and their destination is completely their business, and as the driver, it's not any of your business. So never talk or about anything specific. If they want to volunteer that information, then fine, it's fine to talk about, but do not ever ask them anything personal at all, anything specific at all. Tip number 3 is don't ask a rider about anything specific. It's kind of like the last one. Like, I've never had a rider ask for I've never had anybody ask for anything specific about a rider. They usually are good. They're always good with general information. So I try to keep any specific information out of the conversation completely. And I'm very general and very vague. And I have never been asked by anybody to expand on my answer. I've never been asked by anybody. So general and vague is fine. So tip number 4 is you will pick up riders all the time that are arguing. Like maybe the requester is a male and he's, arguing with a female, or whatever is happening. There's an argument happening. As long as nobody touched each other, I'm perfectly fine. And I never get involved in an argument. So like if somebody, like one of them asked me, and there have been times when they asked me and I always just say I wasn't listening, even though I was. I would just always say I wasn't listening. I'd be like, huh? I wasn't listening. So just mind your own business always and drive. There's going to be arguments. A lot of times, like, you'll find yourself in a position where the woman is crying and, they're arguing back and forth. Just mind your own business and let them argue. As long as nobody's touching each other, everything's fine. And that has never, ever happened. There has never been a physical fight in my car, ever. There have been plenty of arguments, though. And when asked, I would say probably like 3 or 2 times out of 10 I've been asked, and I just always say the same thing. Huh? I wasn't paying attention. So tip number 5 is if you are ever in a position to do a pickup and you don't like the feeling or vibe that it gives you, just cancel that ride and go right on to the next one. There'll be other rides. I remember like when I first started driving, I used to drive at night and I was in downtown St. Pete and somebody requested a ride and it brought me to this place that was like, it just didn't feel right. So I ended up like, I just looked around and I was like, this doesn't feel right at all. So I just canceled the trip. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning or something and I had been waiting for like 10 minutes. So I just canceled the trip and went right on about my business and just picked up the next ride. I do that all the time. If there is anything that's bugging you at all about your location or anything at all, feel free to just cancel that trip. You don't even have to wait for the cancellation fee. Just cancel that trip and go right on to the next call. If there are ever any questions about any of these tips, you can just send an email to me at driver@ridesharedriver.blog or at ridesharedriver.blog. There's a contact form. You can use that. That also goes to my mobile device. So I'll get both of those emails immediately. Just FYI.